I've got a very interesting perspective on moral awareness. That is something that my mother and father were very careful to raise me with. My parents were fundamentally aware that deception is a reality that we live with. So we got points when I was growing up if you could tell a creative falsehood. But it had to fall within a certain set of rules that we had to learn as part of our upbringing. My parents taught us to lie and to lie well, but they also taught us why people lie and what kind of lies there are and how to use lies to effectively improve a situation as opposed to just get yourself out of trouble. And it was all part of an intrinsic underlying don't do harm while you are improving the world around you if you can help it lesson.
That's interesting because I was taught the opposite. I was but even more so than most. My dad grew up in one of the rough areas of Detroit. You had to be a straight shooter, though. You couldn't lie there because in that environment, your word's your bond, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. If you break your word, you have no credibility. And once that's gone, right, you're done. Like you're just done.
That's really part of the lesson is that you can't just lie. You can't use a lie when a truth will do. If you need a truth, you should tell the truth. And understanding what a lie is something that you need to know in order to understand its value.
So I'm going to ask this then, since we're in this, what is a lie? For me, I have my own answer to it, but I'm curious what yours is.
You want to get philosophical about it? I can go on at length. A lie.
So we're here to have a conversation. So this is where we've gone to. Let's go.
A lie is something that falls into a bunch of different categories. You have lies, you have falsehoods, you have misdirections, you have deceptions, you have it's all a matter of the context of the situation that you are not exposing the full facts to the audience. Magic is a lie. Mm-hmm. Sexual tension is a lie. Plot in a story is a lie because you don't tell everything up front. You might know something, but the disclosure of that something needs to come at the right time in the appropriate way for the appropriate impact that you need to make a situation work. I work in software development. I work in business analysis. And a lot of the time, the deception for me is letting someone else speak their mind down the wrongest of paths so that we can explore that path. And I might have known from the outset that that was the wrong path to follow. But getting to the end of it is integral for us understanding why it was the wrong path to follow. So lies are things that we need to execute in a way where we're having a dynamic between more than one person that not everything is given out at the front of it. The kinds of lies can be hurtful lies, they can be beneficial lies, they can be irrelevant lies, but what makes a lie have value or impact or risk or reward is the context of the situation and how much damage you are either doing or mitigating with whatever you're trying to accomplish. I know it's a complicated answer, but that's a complicated subject. Most people think a lie is anything that's not the truth. Truth is subjective and relative for a lot of people. People make their own truths. People have a truth that comes from a different perspective of what a situation might be. A lie is something that enables us to get to a consensus on something and protect ourselves from risk or protect someone else from risk or inflict damage on someone in order to get what you need.
Okay. Well, I always tend to look at a lie as a story. And here's my take on it. Some of the examples you talked about. Truth to everybody, lies we all believe in. Money. Mm-hmm. Money in and of itself has actually no value, but we all believe it has value because that's what we use to trade with each other. right? But if you look at it, it's a piece of paper or it's a piece of data, it's information. It's a little bit, it's even actually where it's less now. It's a bit of information. It's all
Yep.
really money at its these days. So there's that.
At least the Romans had salt. Salt was money because it was worth something. You needed it to live.
I actually see salt as something a little more valuable than a bit of information, though. Salt actually has a lot of actually health benefits. That is the argument for Bitcoin. That is the argument for Bitcoin, there, Jag. That's totally it. But if you look at laws, are stories, are constructs. Society is a construct, right? We've all agreed to live this way. I think the interesting thing that as brutal as this is right now, there is a quiet agreement with the majority of people to live this way right now.
Yep.
If we decided tomorrow that we didn't really want to live this way, we would. It would be gone. It would be over. It would be done. That's it, right? That's the truth. Like what? Like right now, we can't go out and contact with each other because right now we hurt each other. Whether that's true or not is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is we believe it. Now tomorrow, if I say we can go outside and we won't hurt each other anymore, like what the risk is gone, well, that's not the truth. Whether or not it is true or not is irrelevant because that in itself, it's the story, the narrative that we believe is true.
Yep.
Right? That does not necessarily make it true. And if you understand that, you understand the fact that there's not really a whole lot around us is true. It's a concept.
It's the connective tissue between people.
Yeah.
And in order to get a truth, it has to be an individual's acceptance of something.
A person has to be ready for it. And that's a really, 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 really fine line with a lot of people because we all have our own perceptions of what is real or what is true. I joke about what is real because I don't know what real is. That might be the most honest thing I've ever said. Because because real is such a broad concept. How do you define it? Right? That sounds like a movie quote, but it's a good one, right? Right, but that's the thing. Like the one thing that almost none of us are taught, but it is the truth. You go out there long enough, you realize this. Everything we have is by and large a construct we all want to exist. And the question really becomes: is what do we really want? I actually say the one big truth I do believe is that everybody does exactly what they want, no matter what circumstances. For example, I wanted to hug Gwen, and I can't blame you. She's adorable, right? But that was the bigger one. That was the big one. But the thing is, we all do exactly what we want to do. Now, the only real question then is, what are we consciously controlling those wants, or are our desires they're controlling us? And I think there's a constant. That's the real struggle. And if the desires control you, you can be manipulated to believe anything you want to believe. If you have a very specific want you have, right? Well, you're going to go find it and seek it no matter what. There's a difference of what controls the perception.
Yeah. So one of my favorite writers and philosophers is Carl Sagan.
Okay.
Carl Sagan belonged to a category of philosophical physics, astrophysicist, philosopher kings that were like Richard Feynman and Carl Sagan, and like there's a number of people who bring poetry to the math, pure crunch math of physics, and have brought incredible beauty through that. But Carl Sagan, in his Cosmos series, discussed the fact that the brain perceives, and that perception is interpreted. There is, as part of our life experience, not just part of our life experience, if it's true or false, that's different from fact and reality. Fact and reality are different things. There's 12 fundamental particles, there's 4 forces of nature, there's a lot of things in the universe that we interpret, but our experience is always going to be a lensed thing through the fact that our meat robot computer up here has to make what it will out of whatever it's fed. So the whole of human history has just been a matter of collaboratively coming to agreements on whether or not something was something and how that worked. That means that everything everything is a matter of interpretation of deceptions or truths. And truth only comes when you accept whatever is being put in front of you as probably the most likely situation to have occurred or to be occurring. So pushing all of that complexity off to the side, when you ask me what is a lie, I would say a lie is the most fundamental communication between human beings. And it's the intent behind that communication that determines whether the lie is productive or harmful.
I actually only think that's one part of the equation, though. So I believe there's actually three parts to that equation: intention, impact,
Yes.
interpretation.
And which? Sorry, interpretation.
Interpretation. I had a friendship that kind of came to an end a few years back over something that really had an impact on me, and I realized that wasn't necessarily their intention. And I realized at that point that I recognized something very, very fundamental about that. Their intentions can be good. I can't even debate that. I can't prove whatever their intentions are. Their intentions are. It doesn't change the impact that moment had on me in that time. Furthermore, right, I can only go by then my interpretation of what happened in that event. Doesn't mean I'm right, but it's all I got. So what communication is really about is coming to a consensus on the interpretation of the information presented. That's what communication ultimately is.
Or not consensus.
Yeah.
Having a conflict on it. That also works.
Yeah. So, but like I said, I'm just saying, like, intentions. I think I get why the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I really, really get it, because it's not enough. Because it doesn't discount impact, but the impact also is not enough. I can misunderstand something like that. Like we, as you so eloquently put it, we all have our own lenses of seeing things, right? So, and I'm biased. There's no way around it.
As you should be. It's a survival technique.
Yeah, absolutely. It keeps me. The ego is both a good and bad thing. It's a great thing because it makes you aware. It makes you think about survival. It can be bad sometimes too, especially if I indulge it too much. But it's used to use a tool. But it also means that there is room for error, and that is something that and that's where interpretation is. I think of the three the most important. But the real challenge, I think, is a willingness to understand, right? A willingness to learn, a willingness to be empathetic and communicate. And if that ever breaks down, then you're screwed. There can be no foundation without those things.
That gets into a lot of the fun theories about psychology with id ego and superego.
Yes.
Which is a simplification, obviously, of the big machine, but it plays its part.
Yeah.
I think that it all comes down to intimacy and trust.
Mm-hmm.
And to bring it back to what my parents' intentions were, their hope was to teach me that it was better to be productive than it was to be deceptive and destructive.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. Probably one of the biggest lessons I ever learned along this line. I got caught shoplifting when I was like 13. At the time, it just didn't occur to me that anything was a big problem with this. It was just me being clever with my hands. I could get what I wanted, right? But I used to stop in after school every day at a gas station and ask the attendant what time it was. And while she was checking the time, I'd steal a chocolate bar. And when I finally got caught doing this, the owner of the place picked me up by my shirt collar because he was like an 8-foot-tall biker at the time. And my mom came down, and they didn't charge me with anything or ask me to pay for anything or do any work. But I remember my mom asked me to listen to what was being said. And the person, the owner was talking to the girl behind the counter. And she said, I can't believe he was stealing that whole time. He's been coming in for months. Was that all he came in for? And my mom said, look, you've taken this time to build this relationship with what is a stranger effectively, but it was somebody who cared about you enough to remember you and to think well of you and to spend time paying attention to you every day. And you spent months of your life establishing that relationship, whether it was a greater or a lesser intimacy, and you ruined it for plastic chocolate. you have wasted not just your time and your trust with me and with these people, but you've wasted an investment into another human being. And I never stole anything that I didn't need to steal.